Hello, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala. Welcome. This is your Fuse, and we're talking tonight the remittance companies for Somalis. I've got three guests. Far right is Mr. Hassan from Somali Forum, from Somali Economic Forum, and I have Scott Ball from United States, Oxfam, from Washington, and also I have Ed from Oxfam as well, and he's from Somalia. So welcome, gents, to the program.
Thank you very much.
And let's talk to the remittance. As far as we know, you have heard the Barclays Bank is closing down the Somali accounts. And I know you, if I start, Ed, Scott, tell us about your journey and coming to UK and what it's about.
Sure.
We know Somali campaigners and Oxfam call for Barclays to reverse the decision to close accounts, allowing Somali in UK to send money to their loved ones in Somalia.
Yeah, sure. This is, as you said, a really long journey for Oxfam, and even longer one for Somali people and people in the Somali diaspora. For us, it started in 2011. Ed can tell you a bit more about our work in Somalia, but to be brief, we work through partners to relieve suffering and meet basic needs in Somalia and accomplish other ends. And our partners were the ones who alerted us in 2011 to the possibility that the remittance lifeline might be disrupted. That was because a bank in the United States was preparing to close the accounts of the money transmitters. And so after that, the lifeline stayed open, but we wanted to understand a bit more the root causes of why this lifeline was so unstable, and then help get the word out and help people understand why it was so important and why it deserved more attention. So we commissioned research, and we've spent the better part of the last year really deepening our understanding of what this problem is about, what its root causes are, and what can be done to solve it. And it just so happens that we released our research right about the same time that Barclays here said that they would be closing down the money transmitter accounts in the UK. And effectively, what we found out in that research is what we've been saying here in the UK to Barclays, as well as to the UK government and the US government. To Barclays, we've said, don't make indiscriminate decisions. Individually evaluate each of these money transfer companies and figure out what can be done to mitigate risk, and not prejudge them because they're sending money to Somalia. Further, then, we've said this is a very unique situation because a lifeline is really in danger, and the governments need time to work out a long-term solution. So we've asked for a 12-month extension of the closures to really give everyone a little bit of breathing space and figure out what sort of regulatory policy can be put in place so that we're not trying to solve this problem with our backs against the wall.
Okay, looking at that, as far as we know, the remittance or what we call the lab shield are waiting to get what they called the high court judge has been expected to hand down the decision next week. So, what will be the decision coming from the court or from the UK?
Yeah, well, as Oxfam, we're not really commenting or following the court process. What we're really concerned about is the ongoing closure of all of these bank accounts that enable the money transfer companies like Dahabshil and Amal and Iftin and the others to send money back to Somalia. That's what we're really worried about. So we're concerned, whichever way this court case goes, there's a bigger issue actually about the sustainability of this system and how we can keep it going. Because the issue that we face, I mean, we work across Somalia. Oxfam's been there for 40 years. We work very closely with Somali people, and we listen to what Somali people want, and then we try and work with them to help them deliver the solutions that they find to the problems they face.
So are you just operate in one part of the country?
No, we operate across all of Somalia. We work in Somaliland, Puntland, in South Central. We work everywhere.
How do you think it's going to be effective if the closure happens?
This is what we're really worried about as Oxfam, because we know that there are 870,000 people in Somalia who are still in desperate need of food aid. Now, they're people who receive aid from the international community. However, there are 2 million people who are just above that line, who are just surviving. And we know the UN says that 40% of people in Somalia rely on the remittances from loved ones abroad in order to survive. And when they get the money, they spend it on food, they spend it on clothes, they spend it on education, healthcare, you know, the necessities of life. What we're really concerned about is if this lifeline is closed, you could end up with thousands of those people falling back into crisis and falling back into not being able to cope, like we've seen in the past. So this is why we're really concerned. We're really concerned about the way that the regulatory system is stopping Somali people looking after their own. Because at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants Somalia to stand on its own 2 feet, for Somali people to be able to look after themselves. And if loved ones are not able to send money back into Somalia, then we really hit a problem.
Hassan, you have heard what Ed and Scott has said. What can you add?
Yes, absolutely. That was interesting to hear. Well, one of the key, of course, is a key area that we so much focus on is of course, how this affects the individuals or the recipients. And of course, this is going to affect a lot of families. But as an organization, we are more concerned about the bigger, the bigger issues that could come with this. And these are the businesses, really. Yes, there are organizations like Oxfam, the UN, that do their best to help people on the ground. But what we need to also understand is that over these 20 years that Somalia has been in this, sort of a struggle and the different sort of wars that we had, the civil war in the country, it was the businesses that actually made and ensured that contributed a lot to the livelihood of Somalis. So the the kind of area that we're looking from this is that this actually kills a number of businesses, and these are the businesses that eventually would create jobs and to an extent play a big role in terms of stabilizing the country.
What do you think if the Barclays Bank makes its decision to close down these accounts? How it will affect to the Somalian here who has got a job now?
Oh, yes.
It will affect them for. What about the people back home to Somalia?
It will affect the Somalis that are here, and I think the effect will actually be in a sense bit bigger than just Somalis, because you have number of companies, and I think the estimate number is about 3,000 jobs will be lost here in the UK, and these are taxpayers, and of course they contribute to the UK economy, and once this happens. And I think the problem will not only stop here. I wouldn't be surprised if this spreads all over Europe. I wouldn't be surprised if Sweden or Denmark and Germany banks, start to do the same thing as Barclays has done. Let's not forget, this has started in the US, and this could be happening throughout whole Europe.
Okay, Scott. Tell us about, we have heard few years ago, Somalia accounts, remittance has been closed in the United States, but there are some banks is still operating. Tell us about it.
Well, there are still a couple of banks who have who've been open for business for depositing for remittance agencies, and either one or two, according to our research, that are helping Somali companies wire money. So that the money that people send ends up in the hands of their loved ones in Somalia and Somaliland. The trick is everyone is, especially after the Barclays announcement, everyone's waiting for the other shoe to drop. Everyone's worried about what the next step in the weakenings of this system is. The actual impact in Somalia and Somaliland tomorrow may not materialize as a humanitarian catastrophe. But we have our eye, 3 months, 6 months, a year down the road, and what we're seeing is a continual weakening of this Somali-led, Somali-built resilience system, in which people in the diaspora are sending money to help people who sorely need it in Somalia, Somaliland, who are then turning around to support their rural, often rural, poorer relatives. And so this is essentially a market-driven solution by Somalis to meet Somali problems. And it's banking decisions and regulatory decisions that are contributing to the erosion of that system. The irony of all of this, I think, is that the regulatory policy on the part of the US and the United Kingdom is intended to make sure good money goes to people who need it and bad money gets filtered out. And the irony of the Barclays decision is it's showing that regulatory policy now is having the opposite of effect. And that the good money, the money that's going to help people meet basic needs, grow businesses, fuel the economy, is going to get pushed underground and is going to get moved to more and more the informal sector. And meanwhile, that's also where it's going to be, ironically, most ripe for diversion and most insecure.
Absolutely. If I come back to Ed, you work in Somalia, and how do you think it's going to be affect to those community you have met, and especially the families who have children, because children need to go to school. Unless they get their fee paid, then they stay at home. So how do you think it's going to be affected?
Absolutely, and people we've spoken to in Somalia, we've talked to people who receive money, and they receive money from all over the place, UK, US, and other places. What they say to us is, this helps us to survive a more or less decent life. And if this money dries up, how will we live? How will we live decently? You know, often people are looking after at least their family, maybe their 9 children, but then also, as Scott said, all of these other people who are reliant on that family. As we know, you know, in Somali culture, we look after each other, and we make sure that we care for those who need it beyond our immediate selves. And I think the implications, I think what hasn't been realized certainly by the banks, but possibly even to some extent by the regulators, is the knock-on impact of this. If we know that 40% receive remittances, we can guarantee that a much larger percentage are reliant on those remittances for their survival. And when I say for their survival, I am just talking about things as basic as clothes, as food, you know, as school fees. And if you stop being able to afford your school fees, then you're writing off another generation of young people. You know, the implications are quite big, and we can all make guesses as to how that might develop.
Right. Hassan,
Yes.
I know you've been in Somalia.
What I'd like to add to that is, well, I would be focusing on the business side of things. Yes, eventually this is.
How much business will be loose in Somalia, for example?
You see, the remittance now sent to Somalia contributes something around 50% of the country's GDP. That's according to a report done by IFAD. But it's about 30%. Well, I would say if about one third. It has always been like that. Now you have a contributor that brings back to Somalia or fuels the Somali economy and the livelihood of all Somalis at all levels, which is 2 times more than what any aid agency or country or donor has given to Somalia. It is very important. And this also shows you that encouraging this could actually result a great stability overall. But what I'm really looking to understand, though, is this: what is the Somali government doing about this? We have not been, the arguments have always been that there is no government in Somalia. There is a transitional government. Now that we have a stable government, what is it doing? What is the central government, central bank of Somalia doing about this? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because the 250 accounts closed by Barclays were not only Somalis. They were, some of them were from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and many other third world countries, Colombia.
Yeah, but what we
so the difference
Somalia
is this.
no
What makes Somalia unique is that Somalia has always been looked at a vulnerable country, a vulnerable nation. Of course, because of the civil war and so on. But we can't only just think about what happens today. We have to be prepared for tomorrow. So what are the plans? Are there any plans that we are putting in place in order to overcome such obstacles And the other thing is that this shouldn't actually be a surprise to many Somali MTOs, money transfer organizations, because when this had happened in the US about 9 years ago, there could have been some sort of a mechanism. We're supposed to be having a strategy for what could have been taking place, and this is what's happening now. So these are the other things that I would like to also be focused on, that we should be focusing on finding a solution in the long term, not just reacting to what happens, but being proactive.
If I come back to Ed, what you think? Do you think this closure of Somali remittance will affect your organization as Oxfam?
Well, so how we operate as Oxfam is we don't actually transfer money directly from UK directly into Somalia. We go in a different route. So actually, I mean, the reason why we're engaged in this is because of our concern for the Somali people. It's not because of concern for our own operations. Obviously, things could develop and it could have an ultimate impact, but in the short term, we don't see that much difference in how we do our work, and we can still deliver aid to Somalia. Just on the point that was made about the about Somali MTOs improving their compliance, dealing with the system, and also the federal, both the federal government of Somalia and the other authorities, the Puntland authorities, the Somaliland authorities. We absolutely agree as Oxfam. We believe that this needs to be approached from both ends. So it's not just, we're not just saying Barclays, please don't shut the accounts. We're not just saying US and UK governments, please change your regulations. We're also saying Somalis, as part of the problem with this system is a perception of risk in Somalia. And it's a perception rather than necessarily a reality. There's a big perception that this is a high-risk market to go into. So we're saying to both the money transfer companies and also the various governments in Somalia that they need to take action to actually improve their systems, set up ID schemes, start setting up a proper banking system. Because part of the reasons why Somalia is uniquely affected is because there is no formal banking system there right now. So these money transfer companies are taking the place in some ways of a formal banking sector.
Yes, there might not be. However, what this happens is in the UK, and having spoken to Somali remittance companies, is that they have done everything they could possibly have done. In fact, if you look at their competitors, such as Western Union and MoneyGram, they have actually found that they do more job and in terms of comply with these regulations more than these their competitors, the big boys like Western Union, as I just mentioned. So really it is not lack of compliance, it is not lack of following the rules and regulations and so on. They have done all they could, and that's of course, this is as far as UK is concerned.
Hold on, just one call is on the line. Hello and welcome to the program. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, assalamu alaikum. You are on air. We're talking about remittance. What can you
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yeah, loud and clear. You are on air. Hello, we can hear you.
I'd like to thank Ed, Scott, and all your guests. Thanks very much.
Can you make your volume of your TV down, please, before you speak to me, and speak on the phone, please?
Okay. Yeah, is it clear now?
Yeah, it's very clear. Yes, loud and clear. You're on air.
Yeah, I was listening to the discussion. I think it's an important discussion to have.
Thank you. Go on.
Yeah, I think, and one of an important point that I'd like to make is this will be an issue that will be resolved in a good way. But I think people need to understand the importance of remittances.
Right.
And I think there has been a lot of good things that have been done in terms of raising the issue, and particularly Oxfam has been very vocal about the idea of protecting and safeguarding the good things that the Somalis did, especially Somalis diaspora in the UK.
Yeah, go on.
And I think, and we need to think about, and how can we, because even if we have this kind of system, it will come back again. So I think that we need to start thinking of a bigger picture and creating a system and maybe private partnership kind of system where the government and money remittance company can work together to create some kind of system where they can work together, I think.
Right. Okay, thank you. What can you add?
Yeah, that sounds very familiar. That sounds a lot like what Oxfam has been calling for, and really in support of a number of diaspora campaigners and leaders.
I mean, the UK Somalis have been campaigning for a very long time, but you joined and you make a lot of great support. Without you, they couldn't reach the Somali UK where they are today, and that's what he's talking about.
We don't want to say that, but I mean, we're very happy to be associated with the campaigners that have really moved this issue forward. You know, this has been a Somali-led campaign in Somalia. When it started in 2011, it was a Somali-led campaign in the United States, and people were very, very active in the big diaspora population centers in the United States, campaigning directly with banks, getting involved with government, speaking to the money transmitters, also making it very clear that they have to up their game as well. And so this has been a Somali-led campaign all the way.
Absolutely.
And you know, as Ed said, Oxfam sees its role as putting Somali people at the heart of Somali solutions. And so this struck us as a very, very clear issue where Oxfam as a humanitarian actor was doing something, and then the Somali people were doing something that had potentially a much, much bigger impact than we could ever have. And so this really is the issue for us to be involved in. I'm not sure what we would be doing if we weren't doing this.
Absolutely.
And I think, I mean, as Scott said, you know, the UK campaign has definitely been really thoroughly led by the Somali community here, and we saw just the other day, you yourself saw
when we were down the street,
Farhan Hassan's handed in his petition that he'd set up himself online, and over 100,000 people signed that within a week.
Absolutely.
You know, so it was a very, very fast-moving, very popular campaign. Oxfam absolutely agrees with the aims of those campaigners, and we're very happy, of course, to support them. But I think what your caller, sorry sir, I didn't catch your name, but what your caller was saying...
Farhan, it was Farhan.
It was Farhan on the phone.
Yes, absolutely.
So Farhan, I think what you were saying about needing to find this long-term solution, I think we're all in agreement on, all of us sitting here, we need to find a long-term solution by getting the regulators, the banks, the money transfer companies, the federal authorities in Somalia, the Somaliland government, the Puntland government, all of the different authorities out there, all need to sit down and really work this through. I mean, one thing I think it's worth pointing out, the campaigning has had an effect in the UK. So the UK government have started to listen to this. Absolutely. And they have a few proposals on the table. They're proposing setting up a system whereby within 12 months, they think they can set up a system whereby the money they will be able to trace from the UK into Somalia, and if they can do that, then that makes the banks a little bit more, a bit clearer that they could potentially bank. You know, we hope that that could be a result, that they could potentially bank if you can track the money at every stage that goes in. The other thing, the other sort of major thing that the UK government are doing is they're now working with the World Bank to then work with the Somali authorities to set things up, get the banking structure off the ground, reinvigorate that banking system that used to be there. And also, you know, dealing with issues like delivering IDs for people on the ground in Somalia, so that at least from that point of view, the banks in the UK and the banks in the USA can feel reassured that at least we have at least we have some traceable proof where it goes to. Because the issue is, how the system works right now, it works in a way where the traditional Somali structures actually ensure that the money goes to who it's intended to. You know, and we've heard stories of people, if they don't receive money, they will be on the phone within seconds saying, "Where's my money? You need to bring me my money." And these systems do work, and we know that they mean that the money gets to those people who are intended. However, us knowing that and the Somali people knowing that doesn't seem to be satisfying the banks. So we need to allow some of this, maybe ID systems and some clarity so that you can trace, as far as a UK bank is concerned, where the money is going to. And that seems to be one of the gaps here.
Well, absolutely. Of course, all these points that you've mentioned could improve the situation. But I would also say that in terms of campaigning for this issue, and Somalis trying to do their best to get this issue solved. I think we have, as an organization, Somali Economic Forum, tried actually to take this to even higher level. You've just mentioned the work that the UK government is doing with the World Bank. I have been invited to the World Bank's launch of the Africa Remittance Institute for Institute here in London, and so this is an institution where the World Bank is trying to set up in Africa, and so it's going to work like the Africa Development Bank. But this will be focusing on remittance. Now, remittance is really a big. It became a huge industry now. It is estimated to be about $1 trillion in the next 1 or 2 years. Trillion market. This is a huge market. Africa is going to be around 100 billion. It's currently 60 billion, and it has increased dramatically in the past, I would say, seven years. Now, Somalis, of course, is part of that, and Somali community have been one of the most active. In fact, a lot could be learned about the way Somalis do this business. They have advanced. In fact, Somalia is one of the very few countries that deal with the remittance that could help the World Bank itself to fulfill its Millennium Development Goals. Somalis don't only send money to feed their families or loved ones back home, but they actually send some of the money to for this to be invested. And some of the African countries do not even know how to do that. The second thing is that Somali companies do offer the most competitive rates all over the world, and I think there's the rumor going on that the Western Union and the big boys are a bit jealous about this. And I don't know if you attended the conference the other day. One of the things mentioned was that they were saying some of the issues is that because the rates are too low. In some African countries, it goes up to 27%. Now I'm sending $100 to $5. To family back home, and what they receive is about 71%. I mean, $71 is huge. So really, a lot could be learned the way Somalis do in this business, and I think this is a global issue, and we're doing our best, of course, to take this to the next level. I have had the opportunity to meet with the Finance Minister of South Africa, and asked him to take this to the to put this on the G20 agenda next on their next meeting. One thing that, of course, I would say that we can learn as Somalis is that when it comes to our issues, is not the world's problem. But when there is an issue that affects the world caused by Somalis, it becomes a big news. Why is this not becoming a global? This is not becoming something that the world pays attention to. I don't understand that. Maybe we could learn from this as Somalis.
I will ask at that question. Why the world couldn't pay attention.
It's
when
really
they're trying to close that lifeline, and Somalia, and they get angry and maybe.
When we started doing work on this issue, we asked ourselves a basic question. Humanitarian assistance, as we were saying in Somalia, doesn't come close to remittance in terms of pure dollar amount. But let's say humanitarian access were shut off for Somalia. Let's say international humanitarian agencies couldn't operate in Somalia. What level of political attention would we be getting?
That's correct, yes.
I mean, when we do work as Oxfam in the United Nations, and there's a threat to humanitarian access, we can count on a number of reliable champions to make sure that the UN Security Council says loud and clear, in this crisis area, humanitarian principles will be respected, and humanitarian access will be preserved. The access point in particular is something that consistently people are able to agree on, because there's a relatively substantial consensus that when people are struggling to survive, the people that can help them should be allowed to reach populations in need. In this case, we are dealing with a system where Somali people are helping Somali people survive.
Excellent.
And there's really, to my mind, particularly when it's a Somali-driven system, a Somali-built system, and really a holistically Somali resilience system, why we don't have the same amount or more political attention at the same level or higher levels devoted to putting a really substantially sustainable solution in place.
Absolutely. Our viewers, if they could put any questions on these gentlemen, I would like to hear from you. Our number is 0203 397 2095. We're talking about remittance. It's very important for our loved ones back home, and Oxfam has been supporting almost for the last few months for the Somalis. Although the Somalians are the forefront of fighting for their people. Okay, Ed, thank you for all of you and Edward for coming tonight and participating. This is very important for Somalis and also Oxfam because this is another relationship. Somalia, they're looking at good friendship from the United States or European, or David Cameron had held a big conference here in UK last year and this year, but there is a suspicion some Somalians saying why the government of Britain couldn't interfere the closure of Barclays Bank. What can you add for that?
Well, I mean, yeah, we agree. I mean, that's what Oxfam was pushing for. Oxfam was really pushing that. We've done a lot of work behind the scenes as well as supporting Farhan's campaign during this period, and we've been talking to people in Treasury, people in Department for International Development, the regulator. All of those people who have some sway over what the UK government could do about this. It did take them too long to react. It did, and there's no doubt about that. And I think even some people within the UK government would admit that. However, they have now made this announcement, and like I said before, they've put some practical measures in place, and they say they're going to deliver this over the next 12 months. The real issue right now is fine, great. We support, a strengthened system, as your earlier caller said, people getting together and making a solution happen. But this is a medium to long-term solution, and that's absolutely, what we need to be focusing on. But we must not forget, while we implement this medium to long-term solution, that there's a short-term issue as well. Absolutely. And as I said earlier, there's many people who are under pressure and surviving, and they tell us they're surviving because they're receiving the money. Now, if there's even a slight drop, my concern is if there's even a slight drop in that money flowing back, you could end up with many, many more people in crisis. We don't know, we don't know exactly how many that could be, but we do know it would be significant, and that's what we're worried about, plugging that short-term gap right now. Do
you think it's going to cause another tension from Somalis back home to the Western seas? Sometimes, they're not going to help them. Well, and Somalian trying to help their community back home. Do you think there will be a clash coming between from Somalis and to the West, saying, look, these guys, as other organizations, still claiming, the West, they don't want to help you. You see, what even coming to your loved ones is not going to reach you now. So what are you going to do? So join us. There are some groups now, for example, like Shabab, making a lot of complaining, annoyances. And if this lifelines cut it off, it will going to boost for them,
people in diaspora communities in the United States have a really sophisticated worldview. They express tremendous gratitude to the U.S., to the American people and to the U.S. government for giving them a safe place to live where they can do business and support their families.
Absolutely.
And when I've talked to Somali people in Minneapolis, in Seattle, when Oxfam has talked to people in Ohio, this is a sentiment that they express consistently, and they want people to understand that. They want people to understand their gratitude to the countries that have taken them in and given them a safe place to do business and raise families.
Absolutely.
And at the same time, this has become a significant community relations problem. One Somali that we interviewed in Minnesota said, "Why does everyone think that I'm a terrorist or a pirate? I'm just trying to support my family." That's not an attitude that U.S. policy is intended to foster. It's intended to continue to sort of engender the kind of gratitude that we've seen for the past 10, 20 years from people who've come to settle here. So it is a tension, and I think we're very, very glad that Somali people have such a sophisticated worldview to be able, that like everyone else, to see the good comes with the bad.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hassan, do you want to?
Well, let's not forget this system did not exist about say 25 years ago. Somalis have developed this system, and it had became some sort of a necessity really. They had to come up with ways that they can send money to their families, and the cheapest way. Now this had turned into a business. Somali companies do not only serve Somalis; they serve all over Africa. In fact, Somalia is a home to one of the largest African remittance company.
Sure.
So that could show you the level of sophistication and advancement Somalis had gone within this remittance business. When it comes to what could happen to those people back home, I don't think anybody's going to die because they are not receiving their money. People will always find a way to get things to get this issue through. It will affect a number. Of course, it will affect some people, but I'm sure there will be ways that they will find a way to send money to their families. And this might not be the best way. That even regulators who are now claiming that this is an issue with the when it comes to controlling the money and transparency, that this could be falling into the hands of the wrong people. I think shutting this down, not helping, not working with the remittance companies could actually lead to an even bigger problem.
So do you think it will resent many Somalians back home? I mean, the many receivers. I mean, if they had that.
I personally think that people will always find a way. It might not be the best way that the regulators might like to, in terms of transparency, of course. Say if I cannot use the Hawala system, then what I'll have to do is I'll try and find somebody who's going back home and send that money to.
But
now
it will cost up.
Well, it might cost. Yes, it will cost more money to send it because there will be less companies that would be providing such services. It kills the competition. That is one thing. The other thing is that you won't be able to control it. There won't be a formal system to get this to send money across. Is that what the regulators do really want? I don't think so.
Well, I think part of the issue is, Somali people will find a way. That much is certain. But will Somali people find a way to send money the same day every month? And will they be able to find a way to send money in the correct quantities that they want? Will they be able to ensure it going over? Will it be secure? Will they be sure it won't be stolen? Will they be finding people going over who are going to the right places? These are all questions that Somali people haven't, for the most part, had to answer for now a number of years because Somali money transmitters have been in the industry and have found an efficient and safe and legal way to transmit money. So will people be affected if the service is cut off? We think that they would.
But what do you think, I mean, if the United States...
Not to an extent where they would suffer so much that they will die because they're not receiving their money. I don't think this could be exaggerated to that extent.
I don't think...
Just on that, I mean, I think, like I said earlier, there are 2 million people who are just above needing food aid, okay? And the food aid people would struggle to survive if that food aid wasn't coming in. If that's 2 million just above them, if a few thousand of them or more or 100,000 of them fall back into that crisis, then they will need to receive more food aid. Which means, like, if you receive food aid because otherwise you would struggle to survive, So I'm not saying, like, we don't have the figures. We can't say this is exactly what's going to happen. What we are flagging is this is a concern, because if that happened, you would have many more people in crisis and struggling to survive. So I agree with your point. People will, especially, maybe the more wealthy or the more connected people will be able to find a way. The issue is the more marginal and the even poorer people, the people who are, as it is, struggling, are going to find it quite difficult. If you even stop, say, if I'm sending money back every month, and then 1 month I miss it, what happens? Like, you can borrow some money. What happens if it doesn't come 3 months later again?
So is this the best solution then? Going back to the issue that you talked about, the perception, it just makes things really worse. And this again takes me back to the issue that you just mentioned. When we talk about piracy, extremism, everybody's on this issue. They love to talk about this, brag on this. But when it comes to some remittance and Somali problems, nobody cares as much. So are we learning from this as Somalis?
Exactly.
That's another thing that I think we need to look.
What would be the answer for that?
The answer is government. And the answer is everyone, really. Everyone has a part to play. For the banks, it's not making indiscriminate decisions. It's taking time to individually go through the applications or the account details of Somali money transmitters, and to be very clear, in a way that they might not do for your average money transmitting customer. Because the situation in Somalia is so different that we're not comfortable saying every bank needs to keep all accounts open all the time, but we feel very comfortable saying take the time to see what you can do to work out something or to offer constructive feedback. On the part of the money transmitters, money transfer operators in Somalia, they've made a ton of investments over the past decade to become organizations that are compliant with the laws of the states and the regions and the countries they operate in. They still have much more work to do to be able to communicate what they have done, and then also to reassure banks and governments even more. And Somali government, as we were saying, has plenty to do to build up the central bank, sort of a long-term banking institution that really will put this system on stable footing for the really long-term future. And in the near term and in the medium term, this is fundamentally a government problem. The government wants good money to go over and bad money to be blocked. And if banks continue to shut down remittance company accounts, the opposite is going to happen. And so I say again, if this were an issue of a certain amount of aid money not being able to go over, we would have the ear of the correct policymakers. And in the UK, we have had very recently. In the US,
that's good news.
It's very, very good news.
Absolutely.
We haven't achieved the same success in the US. And given that US regulations are so important for banks globally, it's really important that the appropriately high-level decision makers in US government are able to really sit down and think creatively about a solution.
Absolutely. And we're very close to end our program, so I'm going to give you each one of you for your thoughts and for your last say. So let me start, Ed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a very useful discussion. I think what we're hearing.
What recommendation will be to the government of UK and the United States, because Somalians want to get their money flow. Otherwise, it's going to be big trouble. So
no, I agree. I completely agree with you. What we really need, I think, we've said this before, but what we really need is we need the treasuries, so the American Treasury and the UK Treasury. We need the finance ministries in the different parts of Somalia and Somaliland to all get together. We need the World Bank, the African Development Bank to all come in and work all together with the money transfer operators and speaking to the banks to really make sure there is a solution that everybody is happy with and that means the lifeline can continue. I mean, I think the thing is about that, the final point that I'd like to make is I've heard many people in the West say, and in the Nairobi, NGO, UN scene, say, well, Somalis are resilient people, they will find a way. Now, I pay much tribute to Somalis, that Somalis will often find different ways to solve difficult problems. And what I'm saying is this is a chance for Somalis to actually find a solution to a difficult problem. Because if we just say, just because Somalis are resilient and they'll find a way, to me, that's no good reason for discriminating against Somalis and stopping them getting money to their loved ones back home just so that they can survive.
Absolutely. What's your final point, Scott? Sorry.
I've been in the UK since Saturday morning.
Absolutely,
and
we're thankful for you. Thank you.
And I've had a crash course in grassroots organizing since I've come here. It's been really humbling, actually. If I have a last opportunity to say something, it's just to congratulate the diaspora community for some really effective work that is based in evidence, based in thoughtfulness, and really driven by passion. And I really am looking forward to seeing how Oxfam can continue to support this movement, because at some point, very shortly, Barclays is going to make, together with the courts, a final decision about what's going to happen with the Dahabshil account. But this issue will not go away. This issue is still going to be very, very present. It'll be present for us, and I really, really am looking forward to the momentum of this incredible movement continuing.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I think my final point would be a couple really. One is that for Somalis and the Somali government to play a bigger role in this, have confidence in itself, and know that they can do a huge difference rather than so much relying on what the other countries should be doing for Somalia. I think that has been the case for a while, and we sort of got used to that. We got into that routine of if anything happens, then we have to go to the UN to solve those solutions. I think one thing that we can learn from this is that not so many. To an extent, really cares much about our own issues. So it's us that need to find a solution for this. Of course, with cooperation of the international communities, if you like, and other countries that could contribute to this. So it's our problem, and we can solve it ourselves. That is one thing. The other thing is, like I said, for Somalis to have some sort of a strategy for this, really, and not to take these sort of issues lightly. Because if anything, say if we hear the good news that the Barclays continues to open to open the accounts, certainly some other bank will do sometime in the near future. What are we going to do about that? Are we ready really to solve these sort of issues? The other thing that I'm worried about is not really the money that is being sent to that's been sent to Somali continuously, but more about the businesses that will be lost. This kills Somali businesses, and let's not forget, Somalis contribute to Somali economy far more than any, like I said, aid agency or any donor country.
As you are a British person, a British citizen, what are you going to send the government of UK?
I would say the government of the United Kingdom should take this very seriously. And not only this will affect the people back home, but also those Somalis that are here doing business and contributing to the UK's economy.
That's the last word
for
Hassan. But before we end our program, I would like to thank Ed from Oxford and Scott from Oxford from the United States, and also he went to when we handing the petition to the Downing Street and last Monday, and I really appreciate you that, and also I appreciate for coming to all of you. Hassan, thank you. He's for Somali Economic Forum. As you watching, Somalia is still struggling to stand at its feet. It's a very difficult time. We have almost 23 years of difficulties. It's time we unite and make our country a better country. Without working together, Somalis, either politicians or the leaders of Somalis, always Somali, will face very difficult. And I would like to inspire you tonight. We should unite every time. Thank you very much, and thank you for you watching, and thank you all of you guys. Thank you. Good night. Until we see next time, I'll say, for me as a Duale and my guest, thank you for watching, and see you next week.